Have you ever wondered what it's like to be an introvert? Well, if you have, you're in luck, because in today's show, I'm going to give you a glimpse inside my world so that you can better understand what goes on inside the head of an introvert. Stay tuned. One of the first things that makes an introvert is his thoughts. So if you're an introvert, you're always thinking all the time. Now, this is really confusing because an introvert is a lot like an iceberg in that when you see an iceberg, it might be the size of Manhattan Island underneath the water. And what you really see is just the top. So, that's why the whole Titanic sunk in the first place, because the captain of the ship obviously wasn't paying attention to a bunch of other things, but couldn't see the mass lurking down below. And that's the way thoughts are for an introvert. They've got a lot going on in their head all the time, but what you hear may just be a few words, and it betrays what's really happening below the surface. Like, for instance, I'm always thinking about the future, dreaming up possibilities. I'm thinking about the implications of the decisions I'm making long term. I think about what other people are feeling and wondering at the time how they're reacting to me. I'm thinking about perhaps awkward social interactions that I've had in the past, or how a relationship is going to play out. And honestly, for me, I'm always analyzing people, wondering what makes them tick when they're not even aware of that maybe. So there's a lot that's always happening, and it might actually look like I'm disengaged when I'm very engaged. And I think this is the case for a lot of introverts. Now, to be upfront, not all introverts think like I do. Some of them are more focused on the past. Some of them are more tuned into the here and now, the present. It all depends on their personality and what really gets them fired up. But the main thing is that when you see an introvert, you need to be aware that there are a lot of thoughts going on. And just because they're not saying much doesn't mean that they're not engaged with you and they're not thinking about it. You just have to give them time to process and you need to draw them out. But a big part of being an introvert is that even though you may not talk so much, you're definitely processing a lot. Maybe even more than you'd hear extroverts share out loud. Another thing that makes an introvert is the way she gets energy. So, I'm not a she, obviously, but for me, the way I would get energy is to go and be outside in nature by myself or with a few friends. Or it might just be hanging out and shooting some hoops with some friends or playing music. And again, just a few friends, or maybe I'd go to the library. In college, I used to love to go to the back of the book stacks with a textbook that I was reading because I just really enjoy learning. And being there with maybe like one or two other people or just by myself for a couple hours. Honestly, it was really refreshing. I used to just get away and go down by the stream that ran through campus to have some time alone by myself. And even now, I like to get away. We went as a family to an amusement park not too long ago, and it was fun for the first hour or so. But after a while, I was just really drained by the large crowds of people, all the noise, just way too much stimulation happening at one time. I'd reached my limits. So when we got back to the campsite, I just had to, leave our group and walk for a while so that I could refresh, because I can't be around people all the time. It doesn't mean I don't like people. It just means I need privacy to recharge. And that's a big part about being an introvert. You're almost always aware of how much energy you have. It's like you've got your own private gauge, and you can feel yourself either losing energy or gaining it. And generally, when you're with other people, you're losing energy, even if you enjoy being with them. So eventually, you're going to have to depart and get alone to plug in again so you can recharge and go back into the world. And that could be as a result of being around people you don't know, being around crowds of people, not having enough time to think, or it could just be too much stimulation in your environment, like loud noises, bright lights, or even it could be what you eat or drink. But energy is a big part of being an introvert. You need to be alone to recharge. The third thing that makes me stand apart as an introvert, or this is a way I feel, is that I tend to need to get acclimated to an environment before I jump in. I'm more reticent to get involved in something. I first like to observe and get an idea of what's going on. In fact, I have really a 4-step process I follow before I engage in any activity or action. Now, this is a little different than most extroverts. Extroverts are generally more willing to jump in and figure things out as they go. Now, there's obviously a gamut, as with all personality types. Some extroverts will be less willing to do that right away, and some will be more ready just to jump in and learn as they go. But for me, I follow this 4-step process, which is to acclimate, kind of get a feel for the social expectations of the activity or the task, and then to organize my thoughts about them, make sure I understand, to anticipate what might happen so I'm well prepared. And along with that prepared piece, the third part would be to make a game plan. I'll figure out, it doesn't have to be complex, by the way, just a simple game plan. Who am I going to talk to? What am I going to do first? How am I going to get my feet wet, so to speak, so that I can ease into it? And then fourth, how am I going to make that move? What am I going to start? I'll go ahead and get into it according to the game plan. Now, it depends on how long I've been around the people in a certain situation. If I'm really comfortable with the setting or the people I'm with, then I'll be more willing to try something new. I can give you an example of this. I'm a teacher and I just finished my 8th year of teaching. But when I was first getting started in the first couple of years, I really didn't open up to too many people because I wasn't sure who was safe. In general, introverts disclose personal information more slowly and with fewer people. And that was definitely the case for me. So I really watched for a couple of years before I could figure out who I could trust and who I was willing to share with. And now that I've been there like 8 years, I'm willing to talk to almost anybody on a more deep level, a more honest level. But it took some time for me to get comfortable, and I had to figure out who was there and get used to everybody. So in general, introverts take a little bit longer to get connected. And again, there's a gamut there based on personality type, because you have like 8 different types of introverts if you're following Myers-Briggs personality types. But that's just kind of the way it's gone for me. I'm curious. All introverts are different. How do you feel as an introvert? What makes you an introvert? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. I'd love to read them. Thanks for watching this video. If you haven't already, make sure you press the big subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. And then head over to ispeakpeople.com and grab your own free guide of how to be a happy introvert. I'll share 5 specific things that I've noticed all introverts have in common from my reading and research that you can apply to your own life to enjoy it more and make the most of it as an introvert. So check that out.